This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Chamber. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Chamber. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Chamber. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Chamber. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Chamber. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Chamber. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Chamber. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Chamber. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Chamber. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Chamber. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Chamber. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia.
The senators will take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will please retire to the gallery. Good morning, senators. Good morning, guests. The senators and those in attendance, if you are able, please rise. We will be led in prayer this morning by the Reverend Dan Gerald of New Hope Baptist Church in South Hill. Following the prayer, if everyone will please remain standing, and we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America by our Senate page, Cameron Fitzgerald of Hampton.
Let's pray together, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your love and your grace, which you have so freely bestowed upon us all. Lord, without you, none of us would even be here today. We ask you, Lord, to be with our brothers and sisters in North Carolina who are still trying to recover from the devastation from the hurricane and the flood just several months ago. Father, we lift up our brothers and sisters in California who are trying to recover from the devastating fires just a few weeks ago. Father, we ask you to be with the family members of the ones who perished in the plane crashes recently. Father, we ask for a special anointing of your grace to be upon them all. Thank you, Father, for the opportunity to gather here today to conduct your business. We ask you, Lord, for wisdom to conduct the affairs of our state. We ask you, Lord, to be with every single senator and to move their hearts in the direction that you want our state to go. Father, every senator here today is here because of your sovereignty. Father, you said in your word that you hold the king's heart in your hand and you twist it the way that you want it to go. Father, I believe that includes our state senators and our government officials that you have placed in places of government and authority over us. So, Father, we ask you to twist and turn our hearts in the direction you want us to go. Lord, we confess to you that our future lies in your hands. Lord, may we seek your wisdom, listen to your voice, and follow your word. We ask all of this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Okay, so I pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will call the roll. All those present, please vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Madam President. Senate Journal for Wednesday, February 5th, 2025.
The senior senator from Enrico, Senator Bagby, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All those in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The reading of the journal is waived. The clerk will report any communication from the House of Delegates.
We do not have any, Madam President.
The clerk will report any communications from the governor.
We do not have any, Madam President.
Well, we have quickly arrived at our morning hour time, and this is where we will know who all of you, even more beautiful people are in our gallery. And so the procedure is your senator will rise and tell us who you are. And if you will rise at that time, whether you hear your name called or you hear your organization called, so that we can see who you are. But if you will hold your applause until after I officially recognize you, then we will applaud you together. And so I do now call on the senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Mulcahy.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to introduce the pastor.
The senator may continue.
If you would rise, Pastor, and your guests, please. Dan Gerald is a senior pastor of the New Hope Baptist Church in South Hill, Virginia. Dan has been a pastor for over 40 years. He pastored in California for 17 years, serving as a youth pastor for 5 years, and then as a senior pastor for 12. That was before he, got wise and then moved to Virginia. He moved to South Hill in the fall of 2002 to pastor New Hope Baptist Church. He has been married to his wife, Tricia. That's the lovely lady beside him that makes all of those gentlemen look so nice. They've been married for 44 years. They have 3 children, 6 grandchildren. Dan is affectionately known as Pastor Dan. He's best known for his love of God, his love of people, and his sense of humor, and his willingness to always help someone in a time of need. He happens to be my pastor, He's the only pastor we've ever had that keeps my husband awake on Sunday morning. I don't have to nudge him. Accompanying him today is his wife, Tricia, some members of New Hope Baptist Church, Wally Hudson, not in order, not in order, Bryce Lynch, Curtis Thompson, Jamie Velvin, and Jeff Allen. Let's give them all the warm welcome of our Senate.
Good morning. Is it morning? No? Yes, it's still the morning hour. Good morning to you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much, Pastor, for all that you do. We've heard that you certainly make some sacrifices, and Madam First Lady, thank you for helping him to make them. And I see you're one woman among all the men, and many of us women here knows exactly how that feels. Thank you, sirs, for all that you do as well. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. The senator from Charlottesville, Senator Deeds.
Madam President, I rise for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, I hope that you and many people on this floor had the time to stop by the tent outside and enjoy some of the luncheon prepared generously by members of the Virginia Propane Gas Association. Much of it was made using renewable propane. Taylor Sutton is a native of Charlottesville. He's a chief operating officer of Tiger Fuel and is currently president of the Virginia Propane Gas Association. Family owned and operated from the very beginning, Tiger Fuel began in 1982 with just 2 used trucks delivering heating oil. The company has grown to over 350 employees and is involved in 4 very distinct brands: Tiger Fuel, The Market, Tiger Wash, and Tiger Solar. Taylor graduated from Woodbury Forest and is a 2005 graduate of the University of Virginia. He currently resides in Charlottesville with his wife, Gina, and 2 young children. I ask, Madam President, that you give Taylor Sutton the warm greetings of the Senate.
Good morning to you. Thank you also for coming and watching your Senate in action and for all the jobs that you're providing. And those jobs mean future so that, well, they can get ahead. And isn't that what the American dream is all about? Thank you for all that you do. Senators, let us give him the warm welcome of his Senate. Senator Durant, the senator from Stafford.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for an introduction.
The senator may continue.
Thank you, Madam President. Today in the gallery, we have a delegation from Virginia Community College System. It's my honor to introduce Dr. David Lohr. If they could all rise. There they are. Very good. As well as some outstanding students and leaders from the Germanna Community College. Germanna Community College and the Virginia Community College System, Madam President, they are the solution to Virginia's workforce needs. They've got really great innovative programs that really target workforce development initiatives, give short-term credentials, and partnerships with local employers, which, as we all know, is so incredibly important now more than ever. And they are filling critical skill gaps and contributing to a really robust, future-ready workforce. Germanna offers more fast-forward credentials than any other community college in the state, which I think is really remarkable. And with about at least 80% of the students remaining in Virginia, which we love to hear, after completing their degree and credentials, Virginia Community College System is a key factor in infusing the talent pipeline that we so desperately need. So as we look forward, I hope that we can offer them a most warm welcome of the Senate.
Again, good morning to you all. And the senator has said that you are doing it in an exceptional way, which is to fast-track the credentialing of prospective employees so that they can get to work and get back on track with their lives. And so we don't like reinventing the wheel around here, so I'm going to have to call you, and I'm serious, to find out what you're doing so we can make that happen elsewhere. Because when Virginians succeed, Virginia herself succeeds. So thank you for what you do. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. The senator from Richmond City, Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Today we are joined by members of the Fund Our Schools Coalition for their annual Advocacy Day. For the past 5 years, the Fund Our Schools Coalition has been a true leader in education advocacy. Yes, please stand. Thank you. Has been a true leader in education advocacy all across the Commonwealth. This is a group of 25 organizations that represent students, parents, and educators, and they've been working alongside all of us as we've increased funding for our students' mental health support, our English language learners, our students living in high poverty communities, and so many other areas of critical need. And they are continuing their work with us as we work to invest, as we work towards investments that will further fund JLARC's recommendations and provide schools with the resources that our students truly need in order to thrive. We're thankful to Fund Our Schools for being here today and for showcasing their commitment to ensuring that our schools are fully and equitably funded. Madam President, I ask that we give the warm welcome of the Senate.
We know that education will lift all boats, and the fact that you are working, especially in very low-income areas, is exactly what we need. Someone's there to make sure that no one is left behind. Thank you. Thank you for your advocacy. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Senator Evelyn, the senator from Alexandria.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for an introduction.
Senator may continue.
We are joined today in the gallery by Daniel Bryant of the Self Storage Association, headquartered in Alexandria, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary of representing the needs and interests of self-storage businesses around the country. And I would ask that you offer the congratulations and warm welcome of the Senate to Daniel Bryant. We're going to pass Senate Joint Resolution 326, commending them later today. But for now, if you could offer the congratulations and warm welcome of the Senate.
Again, another job creator. We love job creators in Virginia, and we hope you expand right here. Thank you for coming and seeing your Senate. Senators, let us give him the warm welcome of his Senate. Senator Ayer, the senator from Eastern Enrico.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for an introduction.
The senator may say on.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, here visiting with us today are students from Surry County High School, and I would ask that they would please stand. Madam President, back in November during Take Your Legislator to School Week, I had the opportunity to visit with a number of the seniors and students throughout the entire Surry County School Division. I was so proud then to challenge our seniors and our high school students to come to the Capitol to visit me and see all about their government working and to advocate if they had the opportunity. As you know, there are some instances where students never get to visit their Capitol, so I'm extremely proud to see them here watching us do our work and learning about the process. And so I would hope you would join me in giving them a warm Senate welcome.
Welcome, students. Indeed, this is exactly where you are supposed to be. This is a field trip that I would never have missed had I had the opportunity at your age. Because here's the deal, as we like to say. This is going to be you here one day, and we need you to be ready. And the fact that you're here is exactly what's needed. Senators, and thank you, administrators, for coming. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Senator Carol Foy, the senator from Eastern Prince William.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President and members of the Senate, joining us in the Senate gallery today are members of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Chapters of Virginia. Would you please stand? The National Coalition of 100 Black Women is a nonprofit volunteer organization committed to the education and empowerment of Black women and girls, as well as the wider community. The NCBW Chapters of Virginia not only serve as role models to help elevate the quality of life for Black women and girls, but also provide a forum for a diverse group of women to come together and advocate for solutions to the issues affecting Black women and girls throughout our Commonwealth. As a nonpartisan advocacy organization, the NCBW chapters of Virginia collectively seek to promote leadership and gender equity in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. They are here today advocating for solutions and progress on these critical issues. Madam President, I hope it is the will of the body to please join me in giving the Prince William County, Northern Virginia, and Richmond metropolitan area chapters of the National Coalition of 100 Black women a warm Senate welcome.
Good afternoon to you. Almost afternoon. Morning, afternoon. The most important thing is that you are here. And in fact, your male counterpart, the 100 of Black men, what we know about your group is that when you come, you are there to help. And maybe I should dare say rescue, because you understand that there is an absolute need. And the fact that you know if you're going to serve, you're going to sacrifice, and you're willing to do it anyway. We are so glad for what you do, reaching back for the next generation. Thank you. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Senator Piskarski, the senator from Western Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise for an introduction.
The senator may say on.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, I would like to welcome into the gallery the American-Turkish Friendship Association, if they could stand up for us. Wonderful. This is a non-profit, non-governmental organization dedicated to community engagement, service, and cultural exchange across Virginia. As a trusted partner in fostering mutual understanding and strong relationships, ATFA brings together people from all backgrounds to celebrate the shared values and meaningful connections, and they've been doing so since 2003 in our communities. The American-Turkish Friendship Association inspires a dynamic and growing community of professionals, business leaders, and young adults who are actively contributing to Virginia's social and economic fabric. Through impactful community service initiatives, educational programs, and cultural events, ATFA strengthens local ties, supports strong businesses, and fosters greater investment in our communities. Additionally, they collaborate with faith leaders, civic organizations, and elected officials to promote volunteerism, service, and goodwill among Virginians. And of course, they welcomed me into the organization and their space with some of the best desserts and sweets and very strong Turkish coffee, which I, with my Greek background, very much appreciate. So if it would be the pleasure of this body to welcome them this morning, I would appreciate it.
Gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for coming. And the senator, of all that she has said, I'm latching on to one thing, and that's culture exchange. So often we get into trouble because we don't understand each other, and it's a lack of communication indeed. And so one way that we can, get along well and get along better is to discover who we are. Why do you think the way that you do? Why do you do what you do? And tell me all about you. And it's out of the many one people how America becomes who she is. So thank you. Thank you for wanting to be part of that. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Is there any other business to come for the morning hour?
Madam President.
The senator from Tazewell, Senator Heckworth.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't know if they're in the gallery, but the Virginia Manufactured and Modular Housing Association, they may be tied up in the house. I just want to give a shout out to them. In 2024, over 1,800 families received their new energy efficient home as a result of their efforts. Currently, there are over 132,000 manufactured homes statewide, housing 315,000 Virginians. The mission of this association is to partner with localities throughout Virginia to be part of the affordable housing solution. And I'd just like to give them a shout out if they come in late. I think there they are actually right now. So if you would give them the warm welcome of the Senate, I'd appreciate that, Madam President.
Thank you, manufacturers. Thank you for coming. Thank you for helping to, lessen the affordable housing, crisis that we have. Shelter, as I said a few days ago, is exactly one of the reasons that helps us to, remain humans. We have to have water, shelter, etc. Thank you for being a part, again, of the housing solution. And we hope you expand in Virginia. You expand, you create jobs, and so the ecosystem cycle continues. Senators, let us give them the warm welcome of their Senate. Any other business for the morning hour? Hearing none, the clerk will call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Thursday, February 6, 2025. Uncontested calendar, House bills on second reading.
Senator Surreville, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Good actual morning to you, Madam President.
Good morning, sir.
Madam President, I move that all the House bills on second reading on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 1 through 5, House Bills 1603 to 1699, that the rules be suspended and the second constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with. And Madam President, I would like to speak to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I just want to remind everybody that now that we have House bills coming across, the first reading on House bills occurs when they come in and they're referred. So House bills are amendable and debatable on third reading. And so this is just the second reading is like the first reading on Senate bills. And that's what we have before us today. I just want to make sure everybody understands the process. And the same is true, by the way, on House joint resolutions. Thank you, Madam President.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second reading of the titles of House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 1 through 5, House Bill 1603 through House Bill 1699, be dispensed with? Those in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Ayes 40, no 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. Senator Surreville.
Madam President, I move that all the House bills be passed by for the day. And speaking to that motion.
The senator may continue.
Madam President, I just want to make sure the body understands what we're going to do today. We're going to take these bills by for the day. The budget bill's up next. We're going to go by on that temporarily. We're going to knock out the commending, the memorials, take a recess to look at the budget, and then we'll come back and do the budget at the very end of the day. That's the plan for today. So I ask again these bills be passed by for the day.
The question is, shall the House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on third reading go by for the day? Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills go by for the day.
Uncontested calendar, Senate Bill 800, the budget bill. Reported from the Committee on Finance and Appropriations with amendments printed separately.
Senator Lucas, the senator from Portsmouth. Your mic, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move to pass by temporarily Senate Bill 800.
Without objection, Senate Bill 800 goes by temporarily.
Memorial resolutions.
Senator Surreville, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Madam President, I move the memorial resolutions on pages 5 through 7, HJR 552 through 23, Senate Resolution 236, be considered in the block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolutions thereof, with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution.
The question is, shall the memorial resolutions on pages 5 through 7, House Joint Resolution 552 through Senate Resolution 236, be considered in the block in the usual manner, with the understanding that waiving the reading and any senator desiring a resolution to be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the title of the resolution. Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will now read the title of the resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 552, celebrating the life of Thomas Clyde Evelyn. House Joint Resolution 554, celebrating the life of Major General John Dean Taylor, VDF, retired. House Joint Resolution 559, celebrating the life of William David Dolan III. Second. House Joint Resolution 564, celebrating the life of the Honorable Henry Levander Marsh III.
For what purpose does the senior senator from Enrico rise?
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, would House Joint Resolution 564 come out of the block?
Without objection, House Joint Resolution 564 is out of the block.
Senate Joint Resolution 325, celebrating the life of Thomas S. Whipple. Senate Joint Resolution 328, celebrating the life of Michele Irene Chapman. Senate Joint Resolution 330, celebrating the life of William M. McCarty. Senate Joint Resolution 332, celebrating the life of Marquise Darling Hunt. Senate Joint Resolution 334, celebrating the life of the Reverend Dr. Milton Roy Blount. Senate Joint Resolution 336, celebrating the life of Peter John Kemp, MD. Senate Joint Resolution 340, celebrating the life of Benjamin Rod Rodriguez. Senate Joint Resolution 346, celebrating the life of Ellis Whedon James. Senate Joint Resolution 347, celebrating the life of the Reverend Roy Alphonso Carter, Sr. Senate Resolution 329, 229, celebrating the life of Nikki Giovanni.
The junior senator from Virginia Beach. Please continue, Madam Clerk.
Senate Resolution 233, celebrating the life of Harold Alvin Goodman, Sr. Senate Resolution 236, celebrating the life of Paulina Yager Campbell.
The resolutions will be agreed to in the usual manner. That is, all resolution except House Joint Resolution 564 on page 6, which is out of the block. The resolutions are agreed to.
House Joint Resolution 564, celebrating the life of the Honorable Henry Levander Marsh III.
The senior senator from Enrico, Senator Bagby.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, House Joint Resolution 564 is the companion to our Senate Joint Resolution, and I hope it will be the will of the body to agree.
The senator from Charlottesville, Senator Deeds.
Madam President, I rise to speak to the resolution.
The senator may continue.
Being in the Senate with Henry Marsh is like being drafted on a baseball team that has Mickey Mantle in its lineup. Henry Marsh was a leader, a quiet leader who did hard things when they were really hard. He struggled, he suffered, but he was a beacon of light for a whole lot of people, for generations of people, and a real leader. all of us ought to be proud of the fact that we get the opportunity to serve in the Senate of Virginia. Henry Marsh was somebody who served here whose name will be in history books. There will be monuments and statues. I'm not sure about the rest of us, but Henry, he was one of those people, and I'm proud to have called him a friend. I'm proud that I had the opportunity to serve with him and work with him.
Senator Obenshain, the senator from Rockingham.
Madam President, I speak to the resolution.
The senator may continue.
You know, I grew up in Richmond and moved to the Shenandoah Valley in 1986. Henry Marsh was omnipresent as I was growing up as a child and a young man, serving on city council, his civil rights fights, somebody I always admired, but I had the distinct honor of being able to serve with him in the Senate. I served with him on the Courts of Justice Committee, which was just one of the great honors of my life. And I'll tell you, I read his obituary with great interest, and one of the things that struck me was the mention of his quick wit. And I will tell you, I told the President Pro Tem a couple of weeks ago this story, but one day in Courts of Justice Committee, we had a frequent flyer in the committee on handgun issues. And this guy just happened to be from my district and was always there testifying about everything. And his mantra was always, it's not the gun, it's the person. And this one particular day, Henry was chairing the courts committee. And of course, this fella moseys up to the podium and makes that point one more time. And to put an exclamation on it, he pulls his jacket back and pulls his handgun out of his holster and puts it on the podium. And Henry says, "Yes, no, how you want me to vote?" Henry was something else. He was a great leader. He was a great chairman of the courts committee. It was a pleasure serving with him on that, and it was just a real honor for me, having known Henry and his legacy really all of my life, to have had the opportunity to sit next to him in committee meetings and to serve with him on the floor. He will be missed. He is a revered figure in Virginia.
Senator Stanley, the senator from Franklin County.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking in favor of HJ564.
The senator may continue.
Thank you, Madam President. As I think about this, and it's hard to believe he's gone, because as I also look across the aisle and around myself, I started here as number 40, and now I'm in the single digits, and I see all of these nice young faces of the next generation that was here. When I came to the Senate in 2011, we had some titans. Yvonne Miller, Chuck Colgan, Walter Stosh, and Henry Marsh. And Henry, because he was a trial lawyer, litigator like I was, we had an affinity for each other. And he told me so many great trial stories, litigation stories, of all the great accomplishments he achieved in a court of law in the Commonwealth of Virginia, at the same time, all the losses that he had to undertake in order to get there. It was an amazing thing to listen to as a lawyer. And here I was talking to this titan, one of the finest trial lawyers the Commonwealth of Virginia has ever produced, one of the finest trial lawyers that made such a change in our lives and in our world. And many of us in our young pages don't even know it. You know, I used to tell my father, I get frustrated because I wanted to change the world. And he'd say to me, "Son," and I'd say, "You can't change the world." And he'd say to me, "Son, if you can change the life of one person, you've changed their world, and in turn, you've changed the world." Well, Henry Marsh epitomized that. With every client that he had, with everything that he did on this floor. I remember, so many times he would sit in the chair right back here in the cloakroom, and he'd be eating his lunch or whatever, and he'd say, and I'm going to imitate him, "Bill, come here, come here." And I'd lean into him, expecting these great pearls of wisdom from Henry. And I'd say, "Yes, Henry, yes." And he'd lean into me and go, "Try not to be a moron out there." You took my punchline. I wish I listened to him more. But he had a love for us all. It wasn't party. And he had a love of the law. And what he really had was a love of people and of our communities and our society. And he proved it every single day. We used to walk up from the parking lot together. And I cherish those days. And I'm sad I don't have them anymore. And I hope we, as now the older members of this body, can take it upon ourselves to do the same in return and pay that debt forward that Henry did so graciously to me. He walks with the angels now. He was a mountain masquerading as a man. He will be remembered, and he will always be missed. Thank you, Madam President.
And I, too, have my story of Senator Marsh when I first arrived here, and he welcomed me greatly. And then he reminded me that, you know, he's Army and I'm Marines and how things really work. And he being the elder statesman, I allowed him at one time. The resolution will be agreed to in the usual manner. All those in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolution, please rise. The resolution is agreed to.
Commending resolutions.
Senator Surreville, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Madam President, I move the commending resolutions on pages 8 through 12, HJR 535 through SR 237 be considered in the block by a voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions with the understanding that any senator desiring to remove a resolution from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution.
The question is, shall the commending resolutions on pages 8 through 12, House Joint Resolution 535 through Senate Resolution 237, be considered in the block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution to be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolutions. Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will now read the numbers of the resolution.
House Joint Resolutions 535, 536, 537, 538, 539, 540, 541, 542, 543, 545, 547, 549, 550, 551, 553, 555, 557, 560, 562, 563, Senate Joint Resolutions 323, 326, 327, 329, 331, 333, 338, 339, 341, 342, 343, 344, 345, 348, Senate Resolution 230, 231, 232, 234, 235, 237.
The question is, shall the resolutions be agreed to? All in favor of agreeing to the resolutions will say aye. Those opposed, no. The resolutions are agreed to. Senator Surreville, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County. Calendar.
Madam President, we're
recess.
not done yet, so.
That's wishful thinking, sir.
Yeah, right.
Recess?
Oh, I'm sorry. Good point. Madam President, I'd ask that we stand in recess for 10 minutes so we can get a budget on the, a briefing on the budget before we take it up in a minute.
Without objection, the Senate stands at recess for 10 minutes.
Madam President.
Chair Lucas and members of the body and staff, I'm going to quickly cover the presentation, knowing that the subcommittee reports were done on Sunday and a lot of details have been provided and the amendments have been posted. However, please let me know if you have any questions. Starting on page 4, the resources of the actions of the committee are summarized. There you're going to see a number of items where we're reverting balances for the committee. You're also going to see the proposed tax policy actions other than the rebate, which will be under the Finance Secretariat. There is also the new tax actions and some different forecast adjustments there as well. And you'll see that the unappropriated balance there in the right-hand corner of $13.1 million. If you flip to page 5, the most important thing to note, if you go back to the introduced budget, the unappropriated balance was 14.8, so this is slightly lower, but in the same range, also in the right corner. On page 6, this is a summary of the tax relief. You'll see the Working Virginians tax rebate of $200 for single filers and $400 for joint filers. Up to their tax liability that'll be provided by October 15th. However, if you're an extended filer, I believe, Tyler, November 3rd, as long as you file your taxes by November 3rd and you have tax liability. That's at a cost of about $978 million. It extends the expiring standard deduction, the earned income tax credit, and the pass-through entity tax by 2 years while we wait for federal actions on the Tax Cut Job Act and that expiration. There's also an additional increase in the standard deduction for that same length of period. There's an extra $250 for single filers and $500 for joint filers. There's also an action that moves the refundable earned income tax credit from 15% to 20% of the federal credit. And then lastly, what's retained is it increases the liability threshold for estimated payments from $150 to $1,000. Moving to page 7, other tax policy language, the Housing Opportunity Tax Credit gets extended based on committee policy through 2030. It's not an increase, it's just an extension of the existing credit that's already in the revenue forecast. There's also a local option 1% sales tax for school construction, and that is in Part 4. There's also data center sales and use tax exemption language that requires data center operators to meet certain energy efficiency standards to be eligible for the sales and use tax exemption for data center purchases. Slide 8 has other Part 4 enactment language. I'm not going to go through a lot of details since it's been previously discussed. But Skill Games is in Part 4 under the Virginia Small Business Development Act. It is the same bill. It's identical to what passed the body in the 2024 session. There's language related to parimutuel wagering referendum. There's a language amendment on legislative standing to intervene. And workers' compensation that increases from 52 weeks to 104 weeks, the maximum duration after the date of diagnosis that workers' comp benefits are payable for anxiety disorder, depressive disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder incurred by law enforcement officers and firefighters acting in the line of duty. Slide 9 is really the top-level summary of the new major spending items. There's about $223 million to raise the support cap for the prevailing ratio of those 27.89 positions per 1,000 students, what your school divisions have been asking for. There's $134.4 million for a $1,000 bonus for teachers in the current fiscal year and school support staff. That does not require a local match. And that's in addition to the previous salary increase that was in Chapter 2, which was a 3% increase. So no additional action on that, but it was adopted in last year's budget. There's $83.1 million for a 1.5% bonus for a state and state-supported local employee bonus, in addition to also what I mentioned, the 3%, which was adopted in Chapter 2. There's about $53 million for a special education add-on in K-12, $55 million over the biennium to support operational costs in higher education to help with inflation and high demand programs. That includes $20 million additional for HBCU partnerships. There's $50 million for the first year for disaster mitigation efforts in qualified communities, $50 million in the first year for community scale flood protection and resiliency efforts, $25 million to support an employer cost share pilot program to provide additional early childhood education slots, $25 million the first year for grants to support critical drinking water infrastructure projects, $15 the first year to support training for industry-based credentials in high-demand occupations, $15 in the second year for need-based undergraduate aid in higher education, and $15 the first year for rental assistance pilot program to encourage housing stability. Now I'm going to quickly go through and just point out a number of slides where there are other items. Slide 11 is a high-level overview of education. Other things that weren't mentioned was $13 million for a math initiative and grant program at the Department of Education, $5.1 million to fund a statewide learning management system, and then some technical updates. The tables that follow after provide you with the additional detail if you have any questions. Slide 15 summarizes the language amendments in K-12, including those under Department of Education, early childhood education, and then others. Moving on to higher education, slide 17. Things that were not discussed previously, there's $30 million additional for tuition waiver assistance to fund the updated costs with the same formula that was used previously for the Virginia Military Survivors and Dependent Education Programs. I will note there are no changes to program eligibility for that. And other things that weren't mentioned, there's $15 million for IT infrastructure modernization through a collaborative institutional partnership, and $9 million for increased demand for the tuition assistance grant program to meet expected growth. Again, the tables follow after. Slides 18, 19 summarize the other actions. Slide 20, if you're interested in the financial aid and operational support by public institution of higher education, you'll find it there. The select language amendments in higher education are on slide 21. And then other education on slide 22, there are a few actions related to state aid for local libraries, additional operating support for the Science Museum, grants for the Commission for the Arts and the Virginia Repertory Theater. And then I'll move on to Health and Human Resources. Just to note, in Health and Human Resources, I'm on slide 24, but if you look at slide 25, just a reminder that the forecast actually required additional funding of $632.2 million, so a large amount of spending there, but that's mandatory related to that program. Some other significant items include $25 million for grants for drinking water, which I mentioned, $10 million for increased nursing home rates, and $7.8 million to fully fund crisis co-response programs. The tables for Medicaid are on slides 25 and 26. A summary of the language items under DMAS, the Department of Medical Assistance Services, is on slide 27. Behavioral health summary tables are on slides 28 and 29. Social services on 30 and 31. Department of Health on 32 and 33. And the rest of the HHR agencies on slide 34. Moving to public safety on slide 36. Under public safety, some other significant items that haven't been mentioned yet: $7 million for community violence reduction grants, $3 million for unmanned aircraft systems replacement for law enforcement and first responder agencies, $3 million for victim services grants, and $1.6 million for a salary increase for security staff at the Department of Juvenile Justice. Slide 37 is a summary of actions for corrections and DJJ. State Police is on slide 38, DCJS on slide 39, and Veteran Services, including language amendments related to them, is summarized on slide 40. Moving to Commerce and Trade on slide 42. Significant SFAC amendments that haven't been mentioned is there's $20 million new money for additional business-ready sites. That is a reduction, though, over the introduced budget where the governor had provided $50. There's $50 million for disaster recovery, as I mentioned, and mitigation for qualified communities. And I mentioned the $15 million for rental assistance. There's $10 million general fund for Eastern Shore economic development enhancements and $10 million to develop an advanced laboratory facility. Other actions in economic development are summarized on slide 43. Other commerce and trade agencies are on slides 44 and 45. Moving on to the Labor Secretariat. Slide 47 summarizes the actions in labor. There's some reductions in funding for some new funding in 1 year and an increase over the biennium of $3 million, summarized in the table. Moving on to ag and forestry on slide 49. Significant SFAC amendments that haven't been mentioned is there $450,000 for the large animal veterinary care incentive grant program and $273,000 plus for cannabis hemp enforcement related to legislation. Ag and forestry agency actions are summarized on page 50. Moving on to natural resources, slide 52. Significant amendments in that secretariat. I mentioned the $50 million for Community Flood Preparedness Fund. As far as the Richmond Combined Sewer Overflow Project, $50 million remains. That was given in Chapter 2, but the additional $50 million was redirected given that the last year's amount had not been spent. There's $2.3 million to conduct groundwater research and $2.5 million for the restoration of African American cemeteries. And then there's some language. Agency actions are summarized on page 53 and 54. Moving on to transportation on page 56. Recommend there's a net increase of about $168.4 million over the biennium. The new amendments are there's an additional $3.3 million related to the Washington Metropolitan Area Transportation Authority. There had been some movements from year 2 to year 1 and some savings in the introduced budget. This is the delta that's needed based on actual updated data. And then there's $200,000 for one-time support for Hampton Road Transit. The language amendments are summarized there on the bottom of page 56. In general government, starting on slide 58. Major actions, I mentioned the 1.5% bonus for state employees and state-supported locals. There's also $3.1 million for increased court clerk offices and Commonwealth attorney positions, $1.8 million to fully fund the second benefited LA, and then $1.1 million to establish the Office of Medicaid Financial Oversight. Actions in legislative agencies are summarized on 59, judicial and executive offices on 60, administration secretariat on 61, finance on page 62, and then central appropriations and independent agencies are on slide 63. Slide 64 summarizes various language amendments that fall under that area. Capital outlay is summarized on slide 66, includes $1.3 billion in general fund cash for capital projects and no additional tax-supported debt. If you're looking for some additional detail, you will find that on slide 67. And then there's some additional standalone projects on 68. And Madam Chair, that completes the presentation, and I'll pause for any questions.
This is your opportunity. Question by Senate Finance Director and staff. Any member? Senator McDougal.
Madam Chairman, I don't have a question, but I do really want to thank staff. They have been very accessible to all of our members. We've had a number of questions individually. They found time for each of them, regardless of the day or night, and we are truly appreciative for them. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move to suspend the rules and grant the privileges of the floor to members of Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee staff.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the privileges of the floor be granted to the members of the Senate Finance and Appropriations staff? Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Aye, it's a recorded vote. Will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The rules of the floor are suspended and the privileges granted to the members of the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee staff. Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, now I would like to explain the procedures for the day. The clerk will read the list of items taken out of the block. We will then pass by temporarily the uncontested committee amendments that are in the block. Then we will take up the committee amendments taken out of the block and take them up in order. Then we will take up any floor amendments, after which we will return to the uncontested committee amendments in the block. Senate Finance staff will then answer any questions for you. But before we take up the budget bill, I would like to make a few comments. On Sunday, I gave some highlights on the committee's adopted budget. I will also do that quickly today. Last year, I told you that you will know where I stand on the issues. And this year, one of the issues that has weighed heavily on my mind is the struggle that working Virginians are feeling inflationary pain. And they are feeling the pain from the general uncertainty that is currently part of our political environment. On Sunday, I noted that this uncertainty weighs heavily on people and that I would like to help provide Virginians with more certainty and stability. Virginia will have to remain able to shift based on changing federal policy to ensure the stability and prosperity of our Commonwealth. And I cannot stress this enough. In these uncertain times, the Senate of Virginia is different. We work together. Is that correct, Senator McDougal? Okay. And while we might not agree on everything, there's a lot in this budget for everyone to support and to be proud of. Isn't that correct, Senator McDougal? It sets us apart as we focus on our citizens and communities to deliver a budget that will lift up our citizens. And as promised, this budget has prioritized that working families and individuals need immediate relief. There's almost $1 billion for a tax rebate. Hear that again. There is almost $1 billion for a tax rebate that was set out around October the 15th. And that's going to be for hardworking Virginians. Individual filers will receive $200 and married filers will receive $400. We have significant one-time and, as promised, we will provide relief in a fiscally responsible way. Other individual tax relief includes a 2-year extension of the previous increases to the standard deduction, which will ensure that there is no impact on our citizens while we wait for Congress to take action on expiring provisions under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We are also proposing to increase the deduction by $250 for individual filers for a total of $8,750 and $500 for married filers for a total of $17,500. Next, we are increasing and making the state earned income tax credit fully refundable to 20% of the federal credit. This credit reduces poverty and helps working families. On Sunday, I also mentioned that while we have done a lot under the area of tax relief, I want us to have a multi-pronged approach. Therefore, we address these inflationary times by providing $217.5 million for bonuses for teachers, state and state-supported local employees, $15 million for housing rental assistance, $25 million for a pilot program to provide for more child care slots, almost $6 million to support maternal health initiatives, and $50 million for disaster mitigation for qualified communities. All of these items will help Virginians across the Commonwealth. Then there's the education component. One is that's near and dear to my heart. Education is one of the most critical investments that can be made because it helps people reach their potential, and it is why Virginia is the best state for business. I ask the community to prioritize the areas of education, and there is significant funding in that area. This includes several items that help people train for a more prosperous job or to get a credential or degree. There are specific investments in HBCU partnerships, the Workforce Credentials Grant, undergraduate need-based aid, the Tuition Assistance Grant, and further funding for higher education operations to help make pursuing a credential or degree more affordable. Other than education, our main investment in ongoing spending are in health and human services. Most of the spending comes from the unprecedented increased cost in Medicaid program, with the forecast alone requiring over $600 million. That investment must be made as health care is critical for so many of our most vulnerable in this program. And as I mentioned on Sunday, other investments in HHR include the areas of mental health, crisis response, and growth in the CSA program. I am going to reiterate to the body today that this is a great budget that focuses on helping Virginians reach their potential. And I look forward to continuing this process and working tirelessly to support a strong Virginia. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of the bill?
800, the budget bill. Amendments that have been taken out of the block are page 14, item 51, number 1, page 34, item 109, number 1. It's back in the block. On page 37, item 17, number 1, is back in the block. On page 74, item 240.10, number 1, that number has been corrected. Page 147, item 377, number 1, that number is corrected. And page 260, item 4-14, number 5.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senate Bill 800 is a wonderful and structurally balanced budget that supports a strong Virginia. Madam President, I move to pass by temporarily the uncontested committee amendments.
Without objection, the uncontested committee amendments are temporarily passed by.
Returning to page 14, item 51, number 1.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Thank you, Madam President. Do I need to move this amendment, or are they all automatically moved?
Yes, sir.
Then I move this amendment, item 51-1S, and speak to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this amendment is an amendment that came through the General Government Subcommittee. It was a request by the Attorney General, I guess, that the governor thought was good to add about $277,000 of general funds to pay for an additional ratepayer advocacy staff or a lawyer or something within his office. I want to say this is the second time he's made this request, 2 years in a row. Right now, they have one section chief and 3 assistant attorney generals dedicated to ratepayer protection issues that reviews all filings by Dominion, APCO, and others. Last year, I guess it was 2 years ago, the General Assembly established the Commission on Utility Regulation, and we expanded it, authorized, I want to say 7 full-time staff for it, and gave it a budget of over, I think, about $1 million. This year, there's language in the budget authorizing $150,000 of new money for the CEUR so it can hire its own counsel to help monitor ratepayer protection issues on behalf of the General Assembly and our citizens. We just didn't see the need for the Attorney General to have more lawyers in his office. And I can tell you that we're also just concerned in general about the Attorney General and the actions that he takes, that he doesn't seem to regard taxpayer dollars very seriously. I know he gave legal advice about 2 years ago, which resulted in litigation where we recently had to pay out $1.8 million settlement because of his violations of law, I think about a month ago. And given that the AG cost us $1.8 million, we thought, given the other actions we've taken in the budget, he could try to figure out a way to cover this with other money in his office. And we also have this covered with the CEUR. So that's kind of was our thinking on this, and I would hope we would adopt this amendment rejecting this spending.
Senator Suderline, the senator from Roanoke.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the majority leader highlighting how small our crew over at the Attorney General's office is, standing up for ratepayers. He mentioned 2 large publicly traded companies that have much larger staffs and have some amazing professionals there. Anyone that's been watching rate cases for several years knows how much resources are put in on behalf of the electric monopolies. The Attorney General is who stands up, legally it's set up, so that's who stands up for the ratepayers, and that's something we ought to do. It's disappointing to me that some folks don't like the current Attorney General. I recall a few years ago when we were at the Science Museum and we were this body was constantly empowering the Attorney General's office for all sorts of different things. I pointed out they might not always like the Attorney General. This, though, is not a new authority. This is exactly what the Attorney General, one of their top responsibilities is. This is for all of the consumers in all of our districts. And by making this cut, it means that our constituents will not have as strong as representation during these electric rate cases that, as we've seen, don't go great for our folks. So I really hope that we will have the place of mind not to make this cut. Thank you, Madam President.
Again, Senator Surville.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the senator's concern. I just want to note to everybody that the Attorney General has a lot of lawyers in his office, hundreds and hundreds, and he's direct. He has the discretion as to how to allocate those resources, and right now he has them doing things like engaging in national litigation. He's trying to take over prosecutorial functions in local jurisdictions. He's got them involved in Reggie litigation, lots of other things. And I think the Attorney General, if this is a big priority to him, maybe he needs to shift some of his resources from these political exercises engaged in and put him in ratepayer advocacy if that's his priority. But from our point of view, he just wasted $1.8 million of taxpayer money in litigation, political litigation he didn't need to exercise in, he didn't need to do, giving bad advice. There's other ways for him to fund this than additional money in the budget. So I would hope we would adopt this amendment.
The question is, shall the amendment, item 51, number 1S, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Page 74, item 240.10, number 1.
The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, the introduced budget proposed a tuition freeze at public institutions of higher education and a cap on tuition increases thereafter of the lower of 2.5% or inflation. The proposed Senate budget removes this language. The budget includes language authorizing the Board of Visitors at each institution to set tuition and fees and requires them to take into consideration the impact of escalating college costs for Virginia students and families. The language also encourages the boards to limit increases on tuition and mandatory educational and general fees for in-state undergraduate students to the extent possible. Maintaining the tuition freeze and cap language in the introduced budget would conflict with other language that grants this authority to the Board of Visitors. The average increase in tuition over the last 5 years was 2.7%. And with that explanation, Madam President, I move that we adopt item 240.1, number 1S.
Senator Obenshain, the senator from Rockingham.
Madam President, speaking of the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, I rise in opposition to this budget amendment. I would point out that the governor proposed a 2.5% cap on tuition increases, not a freeze in tuition, but limited the permissible increase to about inflation. And I view this as standing for working families and standing for a high-quality education. I'd point out a few things. The Education Data Initiative looks every year at the relative cost of higher education and ranks the states. And right now, Virginia has the seventh highest college tuition or college cost in America, behind only Vermont, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Jersey, and Illinois. It is the Virginia has the fourth highest per student loan debt ratio in the country, meaning graduates from college in Virginia are fourth highest in the nation in terms of the student loan debt that they're carrying. A recent Gallup survey showed that here in Virginia, 71% of Virginia's college graduates with student debt have to delay a major life decision because of that debt, marriage or children among them. And our tuition in Virginia is twice the tuition in states like Florida. Tuition cost is really becoming a real barrier to obtaining higher education in Virginia, and data also shows that it is a driver of dropout decisions. I would respectfully submit that the governor's budget, which required the imposition of a 2.5% cap, is very important to our efforts to make sure that we provide higher education at increasing rates to Virginia families and Virginia students, and that we not burden them with excessive debt once they get out of college. So I would hope that we would consider not supporting this amendment and retaining the 2.5% cap.
Senator Locke.
Madam President, I simply reiterate that the authority for setting tuition and fees rests with the Board of Visitors at each institution. And I again move that we approve item 240.1, number 1S.
The question is, shall the committee amendment, item 240.1S, .101S, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The committee amendment is agreed to.
On page 147, item 377, number 1.
The The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
I move the amendment pass or adopt the we adopt the amendment. And speaking to that motion,
The senator may continue.
this removes the governor's proposal to withhold funding from local sheriffs and local police if they don't fully comply with federal directives from ICE to enforce federal immigration law.
The senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I have to oppose this amendment, and I'll tell you why. Probably one of the most fundamental things that we do as legislators is try to protect the safety of our citizens. And what this amendment does is it tells the localities that if you refuse to notify ICE that you have someone that's committed a violent act and they're being held in jail, they refuse to do that, then you're continuing to put our citizens at risk. And that bothers me. I mean, this is an issue that I really wish we could all coalesce around, because if anybody else breaks the law or commits a crime, you get in trouble for it. But if you come here illegally and you get arrested for it, they'll let you stay. And I don't really understand that. I don't think our citizens and our constituents understand that. This is a simple matter that says if you commit a crime, you get locked up in jail, you notify ICE, and then they look at whether or not to deport you from whence you came. And that's all the governor's budget did. The governor's amendment in there did, and I think it was a very good amendment, and I hope that we will not support the amendment to take that out.
Senator Sorreville, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, I hope that we would support this amendment. I just want to remind everybody, well, first of all, I just want to say I never thought I'd see the day when I'd see folks on the other side of the aisle supporting defunding our police. But I guess we've kind of reached that point. The governor has basically proposed to defund the police. That's what he's done. And he's basically asking to defund the police for something that the police already have to do. We went over this in the Courts of Justice Committee last week, and I was a little disappointed in the press coverage because it was focused on, I didn't think it was focused on the part that Virginia law already requires local law enforcement to notify ICE when people are picked up and arrested on violent felonies, and they do it. The problem is ICE doesn't come and pick them up. And that's not our problem, it's the federal government's problem. And, you know, this amendment by the governor is just an attempt to try to play on some problem that is the federal government's problem. They're not doing their job and picking folks up. And I guess defunding the police is now what that folks think the solution to it is. I don't think that's the solution. So I would hope we would support this amendment so we can keep our police funded.
Senator Obenshain, the senator from Rockingham.
Madam President, speaking to the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
You know, over the past 4 years, the federal government hadn't been picking up these violent felons. But I'm telling you what, there's a new sheriff in town, and they're going to be picking them up right now. And this is a common sense proposal by the governor that is supported by a bipartisan majority in Congress, as was evidenced by the vote, and including a former member of this body who just joined Congress. And I respectfully submit that this is a proposal by the governor that enjoys broad support, even in Northern Virginia. So I would hope that we would take a stand for safe communities in the Commonwealth of Virginia and give the federal government an opportunity to do the job that it is prepared to do and is doing right now.
Senator Lucas, the senator from Portsmouth.
Madam President, you probably were not here at the time. Maybe you were. When I said we support the police, I was married to 2 of them. And we're not trying to defund the police. I mean, I'm not married to them now. But we support the police, and I moved the amendment, Madam President.
The question is, Shall committee item 377, number 1S, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. This will be a recorded vote. The question is, shall committee amendment item 377, number 1S, be agreed to? Those in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The amendment is agreed to.
Page 260, item 4-14, number 5.
Is there an advocate? Senator Surville, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the amendment and speak to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Sorry, numbers get me mixed up here. So this amendment basically codifies the right of the Speaker of the House of Delegates, the President pro tem of the Senate, to intervene as parties and have standing to represent the interests of the Commonwealth in any proceeding in which the provision of the Constitution of Virginia is contested or at issue, or the constitutional legality of application of Virginia law under legislative authorities at issue. And it also says that the Attorney General can only, if there is a legislative intervener, can only settle the matter if the legislative intervener, that would be Madam President or the Speaker of the House, also consents. It also allows the chairs of the money committees on both sides to have standing if the governor refuses to follow the budget, which has become a thing. And it also allows them to bring suit to enjoin the governor if he fails to follow Virginia law or the budget. I just want to give the committee or the body a little bit of history. I mean, first of all, I just want to say we seem to have crossed this new Rubicon across the river where the Constitution and laws don't matter. We have a president who tried to suspend the 14th Amendment the other day, which was kind of interesting, an amendment to repeal Dred Scott. And he was shut down by a court on that. He also tried to say that the Impoundment Act isn't a thing, and he got enjoined on that. And all kinds of illegal actions are happening across the river. And the concern is we've had a little bit of that so far in this administration, and there's a concern that it will continue. The Attorney General has been involved in some strategic litigation where he's been settling cases to redefine laws that we passed that he didn't like. And the governor has been having issues following Reggie, following FOIA, and following lots of things. And I just want to remind everybody, the Attorney General so far has brought some strategic prosecutions which have failed. He subpoenaed Fairfax County Public Schools over national merit scholarships, and that was denied. He had this earned sentence credit litigation he did where we lost $1.8 million because of that. He tried to say that we could pull out of Reggie, which is a law we passed that the governor had to follow. He lost that. He told the governor, I guess, he would hold tip line records on his teacher snitch line that he had. Judge denied that. He filed an intervener case in Thomas Jefferson School. He lost that. He also brought a prosecution against the Prince William County Electoral Board person and lost that. Our Attorney General seems to engage in a lot of political activity. And Madam President, in 2014, I was a member of the other body back then, but back in those days, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle passed a resolution. It was House Resolution 566. It was passed September of 2014, and it complained about the Attorney General at the time, and it asserted that the Attorney General had been refusing to follow Virginia law, refusing to defend Virginia law, and it also expressed concern that Virginia was about to expand Medicaid. It expressed concern about right to work and that the administration wouldn't follow the law. And the House of Delegates, because the Senate was held by a different party at the time, authorized the Speaker of the House of Delegates to intervene in cases, defend the laws of the Commonwealth, and participate in joining the incoming administration on actions and laws that it wasn't following. At the end, it says, the House of Delegates in any proceeding and provision which Virginia laws, the Constitution is contested or at issue in the constitutional legality or application of a law established under legislative authorities at issue, and the Governor and Attorney General choose not to defend the law, then the prerogatives of the House of Delegates, then Speaker Bill Howell can intervene as a party. That's what this bill budget language does. So we're simply building on the good work of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle in the event that our governor continues to choose to not follow the Reggie law, among other things. And who knows what other laws he's not going to follow. So seeing that across the river, there's this whole new theme of the Constitution and the laws don't apply. We want to make sure that we have the ability to defend the laws that we pass this body and this budget, so that the governor doesn't steal $10 million like happened last year on the Green Bank or some other matter that's in our budget. So that's the purpose of the amendment. I would hope this body would defend our right to make the laws and the laws that we stand up and approve, and make sure that Madam President and the Speaker have the ability to defend the good work we do here.
Senator McDougal, the senator from Hanover.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking in opposition to the amendment.
The senator may continue.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, in the senator from Eastern Fairfax soliloquy, I did not hear him indicate that currently our neighbors to the north and south are going to be protecting our borders by stopping fentanyl from crossing from their countries into ours. There are certainly some positive things going on out there, and it seems to be very upsetting to some. But in reference to this amendment, Madam President, it is not well done. If you look at what we do as a legislative body, we act as a body. We can disagree, we have votes up, but we act as a body. This gives authority to individuals, not even ones that this body elects. There's no position elected by this body called the majority leader. There's a rules chairman, there is a president pro tem, but each individual group will elect their own person to do their job. But Madam President, what's going to happen when the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem don't agree? What happens when they don't agree? Madam President, if they're standing to sue, that is already established in the courts. What this will do is make our job even more difficult, and will give one individual, not the body, the ability to make decisions. Madam President, if there's the desire to have standing, the desire for the legislature to move forward, do it like we always do. Have a resolution. Put it forward. We can vote on it. Right now, our friends across the aisle, that vote would be 21-19. Doesn't stop them from doing anything, but don't put this in the law where we're taking individuals, ones that aren't even elected by the body, making decisions and setting up a scenario where the House and Senate can disagree and you can't even resolve it legislatively. Madam President, I would hope that it would be the desire of the body not to move this amendment forward and rethink the other ways that we could achieve the goals that have been articulated in a better process.
Again, Senator Surville.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, I'm not really sure what the senator is referring to. The resolution, you look at line A, subparagraph A, the only people authorized to bring suit are the Speaker and the President pro tem. President pro tem is elected by the members of this body. Doesn't say the majority leader can bring suit. It says President pro tem. It says the majority leader gets notice if suit's being brought. But the person bringing the suit is the President pro tem elected by this body, not the majority leader. So I'm not sure where he's coming from on that. And I would just note that if the only way to deal with this is by resolution, it's hard to know what the future holds. The governor seems to surprise us every year. The AG seems to surprise us every year with the things and the opinions that come out and the actions he takes in litigation, things we don't even know about until they hit the papers. The point of this is so we don't have to come back in the middle of August, in the middle of September, or God forbid in October when there's elections going on to pass a resolution. By putting this in now, it's there in perpetuity, so the authority is there to be used if necessary, so we don't have to come back and take specific action. And I would submit that if the body doesn't like, if the purpose of picking the President pro tem is she represents the majority of this body, the majority elected by the voters, the majority elected by us. That's the point. Same thing with the Speaker. Y'all may not like it on the other side, but that's the reality right now, and that's why they're authorized, Madam President. I would hope we'd support the amendment.
The question is, shall Amendment 4-14, number 5S, be agreed to? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. Senator Surville. Senator Lucas, the senator from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that we take up the uncontested committee amendments in a block.
Without objection? This is, we are moving to record the vote. Okay. Senate will be temporarily at ease. The Senate will come to order. The Senate will come to order. There is a motion on the floor. The question is, shall the uncontested committee amendments be agreed to? Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendments are agreed to. Again, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the rules be suspended and that the third constitutional reading of the title of the bills be dispensed with.
The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the third, Senator Surville, the senator, shall the rules be suspended and the third constitutional reading be dispensed with? Those in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The third constitutional reading is dispensed with. Again, Senator Lucas, the senator from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Is it in order for each member now to announce the passage of
abstentions?
Abstentions?
Yes, Senator. We are at the point for abstentions before putting the vote. Chair now recognizes for that purpose the senator from Eastern and Rico, Senator Aird.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to abstain pursuant to Rule 36 on item 217 1S, 218 1S, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Senator Surville, the senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Madam President, I'm abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item 358, number 1S, and item 359, number 4S, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Senator Craig, the senator from Chesapeake.
Thank you, Madam President. I am abstaining pursuant to Rule number 36 on item 4-14, number 7, but voting for SB 800 as a whole.
Senator Carol Foy, the senator from Eastern Prince William.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I am abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item 40, number 1S, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Senator McDougal, the senator from Hanover.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I'm abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on items 194, number 1, and item 394, number 6, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Senator Lucas, the senator from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I am abstaining pursuant to Rule number 36, and that is on item 92, number 1S, 489.30, number 1S, and 292. Number 9, number 1S, but voting on Senate Bill 800 as a whole.
Again, Senator Aird.
Madam President, I left off too. In addition to the items previously stated, also abstaining from C 52-10 1S, C 48 1S.
Senator Lucas, the senator from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Now, Madam President, I move that the bill pass.
Does the senator wish to speak to the bill?
No, ma'am. I think enough has been said.
Senator McDougal, the senator from Hanover.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, rise to speak briefly to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I want to echo some of the things that the chairman indicated. Chairman Lucas, as we have started this process last year and continued this year, I'm truly appreciative for her friendship. We have spent many late nights working on this, Republicans and Democrats. Yes, Senator Pillion, you were there too. But, Madam President, Madam President, I do think one of the things that makes the Senate different is the fact that we can take difficult processes and work together. Even when we don't like everything about the solution, we still find a way to work together, and I am very appreciative of the chairman for her leadership in that, but to all my colleagues across the aisle for that. I want to reiterate, our Senate Finance team is absolutely amazing. They have spent tremendous amount of hours. They have dug into things to find answers to questions, spent time away from their family. It does not go unnoticed. Thank you all very much for what you do for us. But, Madam President, in speaking to the bill itself, I think as we work through this process, I am pleased that we were able to come together on some solutions. Many of us have been fighting to make sure that Virginians get some of the surplus back. It is important that it was their tax money that was spent, and when we have too much, some of it goes back to them. And even though the form might not have been in the way that some of us initially sought it to be, it is money back in their pocket, and that is positive. And Madam President, as we continue to go through this process, we will continue to fight to make sure that that money stays in that pocket, and that we do continue to put any extra money over what we budgeted into one-time items to make sure we do not continue to add to that base obligation for future Virginians. So as we work through this process, look forward to continuing to work with my not only Senate colleagues, but also our colleagues down the road and the governor to come up with this process that is good for all the Commonwealth.
Senator Sudeline, senator from Roanoke.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking briefly to the motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Like every year, there's a lot to have thoughts on in the budget, and there's a few things that I've got some strong disagreements about. But something I especially want to highlight today and thank the chairman of finance, the senator from Portsmouth, is what we're doing on standard deduction and earned income tax credit. It's very critical that we provide tax relief, like Senator from Hanover said, and we'll continue to have ongoing discussions about what it looks like. And I think that we need to make the standard deduction enhancement permanent, and also the refundability of the earned income tax credit permanent. But I appreciate greatly that the chair of finance said that we'd make sure it was covered in the budget. I want it to be permanent so we don't have to worry every budget, but I thank her very much because had we not done that, that'd be an immediate $600 hit to 85% of tax-paying Virginians, and that's the 85 lower percent, not the top 85. And then the refundability of the earned income tax credit is just so critical for working folks. There's few ideas that are better in encouraging folks to keep making another dollar, and it actually incentivizes you to make another dollar because you're always better off making your own dollar than the EITC, and there's no cliff like so many other benefit cliffs happen. So I thank the Senator, Chair of Finance, for making that happen. Thank you, Madam President.
The senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, it's really heartwarming to hear my colleagues from the other side of the aisle make those statements. But I can tell you something. This has been probably the best 2 years of my life serving as the chair of Senate Finance and Appropriation, because we have worked together so well. And I think a lot of that is because I didn't want them to be surprised by anything that was going to come on this floor that they had not seen or did not know about. And I promise as we go forward, we will continue in that same vein. Because before we come on this floor, everybody needs to know what's in this budget. You're never going to see a surprise as long as I'm sitting in this chair. Madam President, Senate Bill 800 is a wonderfully structured, balanced budget that supports a strong Virginia, and that is due in large part to the hard work of the best Finance Committee staff in America. Let's give them a hand. And now, Madam President, I renew my motion that the bill pass.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 800 pass? Those in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 2.
Ayes 38, noes 2. Senate Bill 800 passes. Is there any other business to come before the Senate?
Madam President.
For what purpose does the senator from Eastern Fairfax County rise?
Inquiry of the clerk, does that complete our calendar?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The junior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Rouse.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to rise for a point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Today we had an opportunity to honor my college professor, Nikki Giovanni. And if you know Nikki Giovanni, she was very outspoken. She was very direct and did a lot for humanity, not just for Black Americans. So it's just really hard knowing what she meant to so many people throughout this world, but throughout Virginia as well. Our terrible day, April 16, 2007, at the Virginia Tech shooting, Nikki Giovanni stood up and gave this very impassioned speech about what it means to be a Hokie. And on that day, the nation, we all became Hokies, and I think it's one of the most memorable moments. If you didn't know Nikki Giovanni then, that people would probably ascribe to her. But I'm going to miss her. You know, sitting in her class, she had a profound love for student athletes. And it was one of those things where Nikki always let us know exactly where we stood at on campus. And she would always say, listen, they're going to work y'all very hard out there on that football field in your respective sports. So you better get an education here while you're at Virginia Tech. And that meant a lot to me, especially having this African-American woman who was a profound poet, who was a civil rights leader. She encouraged me, she emboldened me to speak my mind, to stand up for what I believe in, reinforcing a lot what my mother had instilled in me. And I'm going to miss her. I'm going to miss her a lot, but I won't forget what her legacy and what she has taught me and so many others throughout this world and throughout our Commonwealth, and she will forever be Virginia Tech Hokie. Thank you.
The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeSteph.
Madam President, I rise for an announcement.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President, I just wanted to remind everybody in the chamber that tomorrow at 7:30 is a breakfast hosted by you at your office. And it's open for all of our legislative aides and interns and everybody else who wants breakfast at 7:30.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a brief point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Just briefly, today, February 6th, is one of my favorite presidents, Ronald Reagan's birthday. Ronald Reagan, just like Senator Marsh, was full of a lot of great wit and was able to articulate a lot of things very well. A great conservative leader. One of the things he always talked about why he and Tip O'Neill were able to get things done for Americans was because they'd fight all day, but they'd always be friends after 5 o'clock. And I think that's a great example for all of us. And on his birthday, I'd just like to remember President Reagan. Thank you, Madam President.
The clerk will report any announcements on the desk.
Today, Thursday, February 6th, the Committee on Transportation will meet 15 minutes after adjournment in Senate Room B. The Education and Health Subcommittee on Public Education will meet 30 minutes after adjournment in Senate Room C. Senators Van Valkenburg, Locke, Peake, Pekarsky, and Craig. Tomorrow, Friday, February 7th, the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services will meet at 8 a.m. in Senate Room A. The Education and Health Subcommittee on Health Professions will meet at 8:30 a.m. Senate Room C. Senators Boysko, Pillion, Bagby, Head, and Pekarsky. The Senate Democratic Caucus will meet 45 minutes before session in Senate Room 1, and the Republican Caucus will meet 45 minutes before session in Senate Room 2.
Senator Lucas, the senator from Portsmouth.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow.
The question is, shall the Senate adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow? Those in favor of that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The Senate stands adjourned until 10 tomorrow a.m.
Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Chamber. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.